We have all gone through stuff. And when you can find the gift, when you can find the silver lining, you triumph. So here we go. So I just wanted to talk at first about one of my very first clients. When I started as a life coach, I was a general life coach. I was a certified coach, and I helped people find passion in their lives. So it was much more broad topic. I worked with men and women of all ages, and I had this man named Mike come to me. I think he lived in North Carolina, and Mike Silver was really depressed and dejected because he had just lost his corporate job that he thought he had for life. He was secure, he thought financially secure, and he loved his work. And he was laid off because they laid off a lot of people. And so here he was in his 50s without work, and to make it even worse, his wife was still working in the company. So every day she would go off to work and he'd be home feeling sad and depressed. And he felt stuck. He didn't know what to do with his life. And so the first thing that's important when you have a tough situation is to stop and really feel your feelings, feel the feels, as they say. Because we tend to want to push them away really quickly because we're not comfortable sitting with the discomfort. We want to get past it. We want to find how to get out of it. Or a lot of people do wallow and just stay stuck and can't get out of bed. So those are two ways that are not good. So what we really want to do is feel it, feel sadness, feel depression, feel whatever is wanting to come through you. We want to really feel it and feel it completely. And then we can start to work through it. So there were 3 basic steps, and I want you to really remember these the next time you're faced with a bad date, somebody breaks up with you, you're having trouble moving on, you're dealing with a family crisis. Step number 1 is to change your self-talk. So we tend to talk to ourselves, and Mike was certainly guilty of this, like, I'm such an idiot, I can't believe it, I can't believe I got laid off, they must not like me, whatever your self-talk is, we need to really see ourselves in a new light and talk to ourselves kindly, with kindness and compassion. And one way to remember that is to talk to yourself like you would talk to a young child, and talk to yourself as if you were that young child. So you would never tell your child, you're such a jerk, oh my God, what's wrong with you? And yet we talk to ourselves in that way. So we want to stop the self-talk and talk to ourselves in a kind way. Okay, that was step number 1, change the self-talk. Step number 2 is remember that you are not alone in your suffering. Think about all the people in the world. I'm still reading the Book of Joy and with the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu, and they talk so much about the communal suffering of all of us. When you remember that you are a small part of the suffering of the whole world, that there are people suffering everywhere, there are people who are impoverished, who can't find their next meal. There are people who don't have shelter. There are people who are dying. And it's important to know that you are part of this bigger picture. It's not just you here alone. And that's not to diminish your suffering, but to know that you belong in a large group of people. So knowing that other people have gone through what you've gone through really helps us to come out of our little world of suffering and really to go from being me focused to being outside focused. And the third step is to start to get curious and start to search for the gift and the silver lining in the suffering. And it's always there. No matter how crappy it is always there. Even people who are in hospice, who are in palliative care, they find that silver lining. They find the joy in knowing that their life is finite and that they get to often have closure with people in their lives that they love. So these steps are really important the next time that you feel that you're faced with something that feels insurmountable. Change your self-talk. Talk to yourself with kindness and compassion. Step number 1. Step number 2, remember you're not alone in your suffering. Think about all the people who suffer. And step number 3 is to start to get curious and look for the silver lining. So let me tell you what happened to Mike. So we did these steps together, and Mike, when he got curious about the silver lining in getting laid off from his job, he started to remember a dream that he had, and the dream was to start his own bakery. And he was petrified. I mean, he went through all the fears of, I'm going to lose all my money, I'm going to be homeless, I'm going to, and he went through all of it. And then he realized, I can handle whatever happens, but if I don't let myself find this dream and follow my dream, I will live a life of regret, and I can't live with myself if I do. And so step after step, he found a way into his dream. He found a beautiful location in an old warehouse. It was just so cool, and it had exposed brick walls, and it was just amazing. And he finally opened his restaurant, and it was called the Silver Lining Cafe, because his last name was Silver, and this was his silver lining. And I just love that story, don't you? It was such a happy ending, and, not all of our endings end with a little bow at the top, but yes, such a happy ending. And really, when we find our silver lining in our suffering, we triumph.